Okay, now rich people have no problem whatsoever with house prices increasing dramatically. Why? Well, they're not really affected on an existential material level with their lives. I mean, they don't care if their house costs $1 million. And the truth is, having house prices going up and up and up serves a very positive function for them, a very important positive function, and that is it keeps the underclass out of their neighbourhoods because they can't afford to buy in. So it's a perfectly comfortable, happy problem for rich people to see property prices go up. Now, rich people, by and large, are the ones that form our political parties or fund the political parties and drive public policy through. They don't think in terms like I think because their heart's not really in it. You know what I mean? They don't really give a damn about property prices going through the roof. If you want to innovate, to solve a problem, you have to truly give a damn. That is, you have to be a person who wants it for themselves and wants it for everybody else. So what this innovation, well, to a large degree it's a description of innovations, facilitates is giving the common man the rich man's lifestyle. Giving them privacy, a comfortable environment, a nice, beautiful, leafy environment, practical access to work, and also, so importantly, the ability to directly discriminate to keep the underclass, that is, people who scream horrible words over the road at their kids and create an intimidating and morbid feeling in your neighbourhood, to keep those people right out of their developments. And we can do it with direct social discrimination. But let me get on with it now. I'll just give you private villages, the missing link, which I believe is the great missing link in our modern society. My claim is that the missing link in modern institutional society is small-scale private communities built and designed from the ground up. We have 4 new key technologies that can revolutionise property development as we know it. Driverless technology, which is available right now for this context, but I'll go into that later. Virtual reality simulations, which is terribly important for a number of reasons. Group forming apps, again that comes back to that social discrimination thing I was talking about. And telecommuting. Okay. The effective use of these technologies can lead to a different kind of private community for the common man and not just the wealthy, as I was talking about before. Communities based on direct social discrimination, not discrimination on just the ability to pay. And here's my model. Take a look at this. That there is about 400 population. Okay, that's probably a good size for a private community. Not a gated community, not a, bugger off, fortified community, just a private community where you retain the ability to socially discriminate, which I believe is a basic human need. Look at that, the track that goes all the way through it, that's for electric cars, which can be bought off the shelf. Very, very easy having fully automated electric cars in a standalone system. That is, it doesn't negotiate with conventional traffic. Flow on, flow off, goes directly to the beach, to the central facility, swivels around into any home. Everywhere is no more than 2-3 minutes away. Peanuts to run and operate, max speed 30 k's, no stop and go operation, electrically based. And absolutely silent. And in amongst all these areas here, you've got nothing but hippie freak out plants and trees and gardens. It would have a beautiful, beautiful lifestyle atmosphere, which is protected. That is, no internal combustion engines screwing things up or racing, or no motorbikes screaming past your house and all that sort of thing. Whenever you feel like going down to the beach, there you go. Always good to integrate a new development with a waterway, at least a river or a lakeside, because it just makes all the difference. Humans instinctively love water and love to be close to water. It's a tremendous resource for the human animal. And integrated with it, you have a bus stop, which can operate. I mean, if buses are efficient because it solves the last mile problem, of course. And hire cars or for a car park, or own your own car, just park it up here, whatever. These are access road. So that's basically the kind of developments I'm thinking of based on new technology. I think there'll be an enormous demand for it, a huge market for it, should I say, because why wouldn't there be? You're just giving people what they want very efficiently. Structural. Okay, getting on to the lecture, just reading it out to you. With virtual reality systems that are cheap and accessible, people can put on their headset and see what their prospective home will feel like to live in. VR technology is already being used in this way. It can provide explicit VR dashcam tours so people can get a feel for the entire development. Okay, and that is enormously significant, believe it or not. VR will have the effect of making new builds much more attractive. Note, buying off the plan is cheaper as developer risks are reduced. And it can expand the market for new builds well beyond people local to the area. It will also drive a more tasteful form of property development, as developers will quickly realise that what feels good is more important to the market than what's hypothetically trendy. Serious design mistakes and bad ideas will be corrected on paper before they're made in practice. I mean, you think about that. You put on your headset, okay, and you stand out in a large field so you can walk around, and you get a very, very close simulation of what it's actually going to feel like to live in, and then you know what it's worth. And you know what the developers will get the feedback very quickly. They'll get the feedback for themselves very quickly, and pretty soon they'll know exactly what their market wants before they make those mistakes. I'm just sort of repeating myself there. Okay. Driverless technology in new builds is immensely powerful. A beautiful home on a busy wide street never feels like the fantasy image in the brochure because the context that the home is set in is harsh. And aren't we all so familiar with that dynamic? A road exclusively supporting driverless cars, by comparison, is narrow and discreet, and supports silent vehicles. Internal combustion engines and hybrids will automatically turn off in sensitive areas. This allows the beauty of a development to come to life in ways that are otherwise impossible in a typical street grid. I swear, once you get into one of these developments, once you live in one, you won't want to live in anything else. Unless you're weird. Okay, the technology for driverless systems in new builds is here and can be bought off the shelf as a standalone system. What I'm showing you there, that's the Ultra system, PRT system. It's working right now in Heathrow Airport. In a few years' time, driverless systems will be universal regardless. However, the advantages of driverless systems will be strongest in new builds because this is where you can fully exploit their capability for creating garden developments, like my original idea further up here. Dependent on driverless systems to be able to get that effect. Okay, driverless technology allows for extremely efficient foyer-to-foyer transport within a new development, which has the effect of unifying a new community in ways that would not otherwise be possible. It effectively puts basic facilities and recreation on everyone's doorstep. You'll be at a beach, cafe or tennis court in 2 minutes. You can finish your coffee while you ride. Try to imagine what that will be like. Social. With a community made up of about 100 houses and about 300 to 400 persons, it becomes easy enough for people within a given community to self-select each other directly via video interviews and Facebook groups, etc. The groups evolving online can work with a property community developer to form their own community with their own rules and can select for their kind of people. Don't think that's snobby, please. I'm not talking about snobbery, I'm talking about privacy. The need to discriminate and human tendency to discriminate, for their own kind of people. That's been with us since the beginning of time. So, snobbery is associated with judgment, not discrimination. And this has nothing to do with judgment. This is just, getting together with your kind of people to create your kind of a scene. Okay, for example, I myself will be happy to live in a new community with these basic conditions. No criminal record of concern, ethnically mixed and age balanced. I like the cosmopolitan atmosphere myself. Live and let live attitude, and people who don't need to get drunk to have a good time will be nice too. If there's a pub in the middle of it, I don't want to be there. I just find pubs depressing. Yeah, okay, but that's me. Also, I would insist on short video interviews for every applicant so I can get a feel for their character. I would also insist that a 70% group majority can ultimately vote a problematic resident out, leading to a forced sale within 12 months. That's really, really important because, you can lay down all the rules you like for conduct, but ultimately, people can be ghastly doing whatever under the radar, and it should be a high bar. It shouldn't be a 50% majority. It should be a 70% group majority. Should have the ultimate right to make a discretionary decision on whatever grounds they want to remove an individual. Or you could end up like modern employment situations where you got one person in the group driving super high staff turnover, but no one can get rid of them because technically they're not doing anything technically wrong, yet is driving everybody insane because no one can relax around them and because they got personal issues and they're passive aggressive and all that sort of thing. But yeah, anyway, same dynamic, that you want that capacity for social discrimination. Okay, that will give me a development that I could relax in, but that's me. Others can form their own communities based on whatever parameters they want. But the point is, this is the great advantage of these kinds of new build communities. They can self-select to whatever social form people want, and people can get a feel for each other via multimedia. You can build true, from the ground up, communities. Yeah, some dickhead once said to me, "Oh, it sounds like a cult, Gloria Vale." If that's what you think it is, let me just make one very quick point on cults, okay? Cults are not private communities, they're isolated communities. They work on isolating, shutting visitors and everybody out that doesn't agree with their ideology. If you want to join a cult, do it. You can, I suppose, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about private communities, not mentally disturbed communities, okay? Big difference. Anyway, getting back to it, I would argue that if a community is not self-selecting, it will not be a community at all. It would then only be a formal organisation like school and work. Yeah. You might disagree, whatever, but that's what I think, very subjective. Child rearing. Okay, I always find myself making these special notes on child rearing because it's so, it's virtually the be-all, isn't it? If we want our society to cohesively carry on into the future. Child rearing. In an age where ever more people are having so few children, or having children so late in life that it's questionable whether they should be having them at all, we can see that we need to reconsider how we are functioning in terms of incentivizing or disincentivizing for fertility. Funny how we never have that conversation. Our fertility rates have collapsed below replacement level, yet we don't talk about it as though it's some kind of a problem. It's bizarre. My model is built on cheap land at the city outskirts, no artificial land rationing, and with modern innovations will provide for highly affordable housing. Housing accessible to 90% of the populace or more. This is fundamentally important for those who want to create a family. There we go. Nice happy little kids. That's what we want. Okay. Ideally, central governments will provide a voucher system for financing schooling and daycare, so the option of homeschooling can be open to all competent parents and on a level economic playing field. Yes, and I said competent parents, not parents who throw babies against the wall. We won't go there. A self-selected, family-dominant community could comfortably take care of its own child care for all levels of schooling. We know that for a fact now. Note, we now know that what affects the long-range outcome of children is child abuse in genes, not schooling as such. There is no need to institutionalize a child's educational development. This is important to understand because so much of modern life revolves around children's education and in ways that are costly, time-consuming, and in fact totally unnecessary. And if you don't believe me, go and do some homework on truly objective research based not on whether or not kids are passing tests that probably don't mean squat in themselves, and basically the final outcomes of children moving into university, into the professional world. And you'll discover something. Like I just said, child abuse and genes, believe it or not, are the only two things that actually matter in the long term. Everything else is a joke and a waste of time. Okay, the final result is that women can comfortably have children in their late teens and 20s, not late 30s and 40s, if they so choose. and they can certainly have more than just one or two children. From a mass social outlook, this is probably the most important advantage of allowing for these kinds of modern new build communities, built in the direct image of consumer demand. Indeed, I have often described my ideas as fertility machines. Working. Internal work local to the community should be unregulated and untaxed. It would be more like a babysitting economy. People should be free to utilise help between each other, freely and informally, as they wish. Hence, it's more like a club than a profit-driven commercial economy. People should pay for services via a special account, possibly a cell phone app, to control demand for services to be fair, but the returns from the use of facilities will be used to pay expenses towards the body corp, so usually there will be no technical earnings for the enterprise, just expense reductions. In a sense, I propose that it functions like a private, large-scale household economy. Establishing developments like this on the outskirts of a city does not isolate people from important work opportunities from the main economy. Most people do not need to travel to a city centre to work, and online working is now practical for countless jobs. Online working is a potential that is growing and will continue to grow. This is important because it creates freedom with respect to where these developments can be located. They can then be positioned in the most geologically ideal places anywhere in the world. Development. I don't see these developments being built and sold by major developers who largely just guess at what their markets want and are prepared to pay for. I see groups developing online, with a website providing the basic organisation, and finally an experienced architectural organisation coordinating the design and development of the villages and organising contractors from there. However, a skeleton structure would need to be first proposed and formed from the architectural body before a group of buyers is established so as to let the evolution of the details begin. Otherwise, you'll end up with a mess that takes forever to reach consensus to get to first base. You've got to find a natural optimum with that. Conclusion. My belief is that private communities such as this, built from the ground up both structurally and socially, are a great missing link in modern Western society. Centralisation and nationalism has become much too intrusive in our lives because we lack the social foundations to naturally resist it. I believe we need to draw stronger lines between domestic society and mass society. This is a communist totalitarian regime's absolute worst nightmare, what I'm proposing. Because it would devastate the role and power of central government if we went through this kind of decentralisation. It will become largely irrelevant compared to what it is today. Which is the way it actually should be, but I won't go there. Okay, the state defines too much how we live, what we do, and how we can do it. We find we have to battle with the state over the details of our private lives that really they should have nothing to do with. Like forcing your children to learn to speak a useless though politically correct language and telling us who our company has to be. Would you like me to force you to learn Italian, even though you have no interest in it and have no need for it? You'd probably feel like kicking me in the teeth, wouldn't you? It's funny how we don't have the same attitude towards central governments. It's almost like we have this deep assumption which is programmed into us that they are somehow better than us or more knowledgeable than us on critical levels, so that we should be humble to their decisions. Believe me, they are nothing but a pack of twats just like you and me. Okay, one of the indirect results of unwarranted government intrusion is fertility rates collapsing well below replacement levels, which is a truly concerning failure. And largely because we have made child-rearing so difficult from making it school-centric and making the cost of living so high that young mothers have no choice but to work. Modern technologies give us the tools to create new communities like never before. Housing can be remarkably affordable and life can be much more socially cohesive and much more simplistic than the way it is now. And indeed, we can give most people a rich man's lifestyle if they want it, in countries like New Zealand at least. And that's a fact. We can give everybody a rich man's lifestyle. We've got all the tools and facilities to do it. I mean, this isn't a fantasy image. This is just a common sense design I'm proposing. Okay, also we can provide for people a healthy lifestyle as physical recreation that is fun, not just painful, is easily accessible, and people can have more time when they don't have to be mortgage slaves or a non-stop taxi service for their children. All we need to do is let this evolution happen, and I logically predict it will. Our technology will facilitate and drive lifestyle demand, and what I'm suggesting is, again, only a predictable expression of actualized consumer demand in response to new opportunities. Yeah. And this is really, believe it or not, what it all comes down to. This is an inevitable evolution, because if consumer demand can truly have its way, what I'm describing is not, a prescription, but a prediction. It's just logical. It's what people will go for. All you're doing is giving people what they want and more for less with the new tools we have. If we don't get it, it's going to be all about threats, which is government policy which gets in the way. And here they are. The public policy that can threaten this evolution is as follows. What we already have now, the devastating urban growth boundaries, making land grossly unaffordable and forcing apartment living even for those who do not want it. And that's people with kids often usually don't want it in particular. Intrusive tax and regulations, making internal trade within a new development expensive and cumbersome, falsely disincentivizing cooperation. Anti-discrimination laws, not allowing people to choose their own company in a private development. I am aggressively against that. Okay, excessive educational dictates, forcing people within a development to send their kids to external schools rather than being able to conveniently take care of education internally. Okay, these controls to varying degrees may block the proper development of private communities and suppress their innovation. I don't want to see this happen, and I will do my best to fight these threats as time goes on. Thank you. Oh, I've got some videos underneath this. You have to go straight to my page to find it, which all relate to this as well. Granny Magnets highlights how to build a modern low-cost village. Choose Your World argues for political decentralization. This is one of my favorites. Globalisation, a new model, describes the far-reaching impact of property development in an online world. And solving the Auckland housing crisis now is related to Granny Magnets and further explains how these developments can solve the problem of affordable housing, though in a way that might be politically feasible. Yeah, I cringe a bit with that one, because although I agree with stand by what I said, it's like a dirty compromise to keep politicians happy. That shouldn't have to exist, but if you have to do it, you have to do it. And this is my very original video where I go on about affordable housing. Housing Affordability for Real is an older video that breaks down the nonsense arguments opposing geographical urban expansion. That's a very important one to read if you think that sprawl is evil, okay? Believe me, you cannot watch that video and come to the conclusion afterwards that sprawl is such a bad thing. You've been fed so much crap, so much assumption, and which is just rubbish. Right, thank you very much for listening to this. Over and out.